Hello everybody. So welcome to Diksha Online. Now let us discuss the second lecture in Principles of Inheritance and Variation. So let us see what is the chapter overview here. So we will be discussing about Mendel's laws of inheritance, Mendel's monohybrid cross, that is inheritance of one gene, then dihybrid cross, inheritance of two genes, then certain phenomena which are deviations from Mendelism like incomplete dominance, codominance, chromosomal theory, polygenic inheritance, and pleiotropy. And then in this chapter we shall move on to sex determination, mutation, and lastly different types of genetic disorders, which include both gene disorders as well as chromosomal disorders. A quick overview, a quick review of what we had discussed in the previous lecture. If you remember, in the previous lecture we introduced ourselves to what genetics is. I had told you that genetics is the study of inheritance and variation, and we had also learnt about a lot of terminology like gene, character, trait, allele, locus, homologous chromosomes, homozygous, heterozygous, pure breeding line, genotype, phenotype, hybridization, isn't it? Then we had learnt about Gregor Johann Mendel, who is rightly called the father of genetics. We had also seen how Gregor Johann Mendel had worked for 7 years on pea plants, isn't it? And we learnt about the reasons for Mendel's success, the three major reasons why Mendel was hugely successful. And lastly, we had learnt about the 7 pairs of contrasting traits which was studied by Mendel. Now, before we get into this lecture, let us again do a revision of some of the most important terms that we need to know. That is because you should be thorough with this before I discuss with Mendel's monohybrid cross. So what is a gene and what is an allele? Now if you remember from the beginning, I have been taking a character that is height, because in this we are going to discuss about the pea plant itself. Now imagine we have taken a character here. The character under question is height of a plant. Okay, now I had asked you in the previous lecture that height can exist in what forms? In two contrasting forms. One is tallness and one is dwarfness. And then I had told you there is a gene which codes for tallness, that is capital T. We had given it the notation of capital T. And I had asked you which is the gene which codes for dwarfness, it is small t. Now what do you call these two genes, that is capital T and small t? We call these two genes, if you remember, as alleles. Now why do we call them as alleles of each other? So basically alleles are slightly different copies of the same gene. So please remember, they are copies of the same gene. So how do you say that they are the same gene? Because let us see what connects capital T and small t. If I say that capital T and small t are the same gene, then you will ask a question, what is the thing that binds them together? I will say that both of them express the same character, both of them code for the same character, that is height. So something which brings them together is the fact that capital T and small t are genes which control height, that is, they control the same character. Then you will ask me, oh, you said it's the same gene. Now I understood why we are saying it as the same gene, because they both have a relationship in the sense that capital T controls tall and small t codes for dwarf, and capital T and small t, both of them control the same or code for the same character, that is height. Now the next question is, why do we say they are slightly different copies of the same gene? You just said they're same gene, but now you're saying they're slightly different copies. For that you will substantiate saying capital T is a gene that codes for tallness and small t is a gene that codes for dwarfness. How is tall and dwarf different from each other? Please remember, tall and dwarf are the two contrasting, what are they? Contrasting traits. Character is the height, trait is tall and dwarf. So how are they similar to each other? How are the genes capital T and small t similar to each other? Because they control, because they code for the same character. How are they not entirely same? They're slightly different. Why are they slightly different? Because they code for the contrasting trait. I hope you know what is a character and a trait. Tall and dwarf are traits, isn't it? Whereas height is a character. I had given you a similar example in the last lecture. I had taken eye color. If I say eye color, blue eye and brown eye, which is character and trait? Eye color is the character. Blue eye and brown eye are the contrasting pairs, the contrasting forms of a character. They are the traits. Okay, so one more time I'm repeating here. I hope the concept is clear to you all. Capital T and small t are slightly different copies of the same gene. Why are we saying same gene? Because capital T and small t control or code for the same character. But capital T and small t are slightly different forms. Why? Because capital T codes for tall, small t codes for dwarf, in the sense they code for different or contrasting traits. Same character, contrasting traits. I hope now it is clear to you. So capital T is a gene or an allele. You can use it interchangeably, but you should bear in mind, when I say it is an allele, it codes for a contrasting form of a trait of a particular character. Tallness and dwarfness are traits of which character? Height of the plant. Okay, so please bear in mind that gene versus allele, actually they can be used interchangeably because they control the same character. But why use a different word called allele? Because they code for not the same trait, they code for contrasting pairs of traits. One codes for tallness and one codes for dwarfness. Which is the allele that codes for tallness? It is capital T. Which is the allele that codes for dwarfness? It is small t. I'm assuming the concept is clear here to all of you. Okay, so capital T and small t are alleles of each other. They are slightly different copies of the same gene. They code for the same character, but they code for contrasting character traits. They code for contrasting pairs of traits of a particular character. With this in mind, let us now move on to a concept called genotype. I had told you in the last class, genotype is something which you cannot see. When I say genotype of a plant, I am asking about the exact gene or allele that the plant or the organism possesses. So can you see the gene or allele? You cannot see. So it is not something that is visibly expressed. But if I ask you to look at a plant and tell whether the plant is tall or dwarf, you will easily just look at it and tell. What is that called? That is called phenotype. Something which you can visibly say, something which you can, or something which the plant expresses visibly, something which is observable is phenotype. But here I am talking about genotype. It is something to do with the gene or the allele that a particular organism possesses in its genetic material. Now we had learnt about two different types of allelic combinations. One is called homozygous and one is called heterozygous. Do you remember what is homozygous? I had told you that in a diploid organism, alleles always occupy a particular homologous pair. We had seen how in a diploid organism, chromosome always occur as pairs. What do we call such a pair of chromosomes? We call them as homologs, homologous chromosomes. Now see the different combinations I am going to show you here. In the first case, one member of the homologous pair has, I am again taking the example of capital T and small t only so that you become familiar with it. It has capital T and capital T. The second combination that I am going to show, it has small t, small t. The third type of arrangement that I am going to show is capital T on one and small t on one. So these are homologous pairs. They are not in the same plant. I hope you remember. Say for example, this is plant 1. This is plant 2. This is plant 3. I am talking about 3 different plants. In one of the plants, in one of their homologous member, there is capital T, capital T. on both the members. In another plant, one has small t, one has small t. In another plant, one has capital T, one has small t. Now tell me which is homozygous and which is heterozygous. The first two cases where I had told you the definition, when the members of the allelic pair are alike, capital T, small t, we call this condition as homozygous. What about the third case, the third plant? The members of the allelic pair are unlike. On one of them there is capital T, on the other there is small t. So what should I call it? I should call it heterozygous. So when I ask you what is a genotype of a plant, I am asking you whether it is homozygous or whether it is heterozygous. Is it seen by you? Does the plant have a label on it that it is homozygous or heterozygous? No, you cannot see through your naked eye. So genotype, if somebody asks you what is the genotype of this plant, they mean to say whether the plant for a particular gene, for a particular allelic pair, whether the plant is homozygous or heterozygous. For example, if I ask you a question, what is the genotype? Let me frame a very simple question for you. What is the genotype of this? I'm pointing a tall plant to you and I'm asking you, what is the genotype of this tall plant? So you cannot obviously directly say, you will have to conduct a lot of breeding experiments like how Mendel did with the pea plant. So what I am asking you is, when I say what is the genotype of this tall plant, I want to know whether this tall plant is homozygous tall with 2 copies of capital T on its homologous pair, or it is heterozygous tall with 1 capital T and 1 small t. So my question, the answer that I am expecting from you is, I want to know whether the plant, with respect to tall, with respect to the character of height, whether the plant is homozygous tall or heterozygous tall. So whenever you think of genotype, please remember, you know the definition of genotype from the last lecture. It is the actual genetic constitution of an organism. So if somebody is asking you the genotype, that somebody wants to know whether the plant or the organism is homozygous, it has like alleles, or it is heterozygous, it has unlike alleles. Is that clear to all of you? Is the concept clear to all of you? So in the previous slide we learnt about gene and allele. I told you there is a character that is height. It has 2 traits, tall and dwarf. The trait of tall is coded by a gene called capital T. The trait of dwarf is coded by a gene called small t. We call such genes which code for the same character but different traits as what? Alleles. Now I had told you, all of you, look here. This is very, very important. How are capital T and small t related to each other? Because they control the same character. How are they not totally related? There is slight difference. They are slightly different copies because they control different traits. So they are related because they control the same character, height. They are unrelated. They are slightly different because they control different traits. Then genotype. If one is asking you for genotype, one wants to know whether the plant for that particular trait, like I said, what is the genotype of the tall plant? I want to know with respect to tall alone. I want to know whether the plant is a homozygous plant or a heterozygous plant. And then very, very important, why have I taken paired chromosomes in each of these plants? Because remember, pea plant is diploid. If you remember in the last class I had told you the diploid number of pea plant is 2n is equal to 14. How many pairs of chromosomes are there if the 2n is equal to 14? 7 pairs of homologous chromosomes. There are 7 pairs of homologous chromosomes. I have taken only 1 pair. In how many plants? This is the pair in plant 1. This is another pair, the same pair in a different plant, plant 2, and this is in plant 3. Plant 1 has 2 identical copies of alleles, capital T, capital T. Plant 2 has also small t, small t. So both plant 1 and plant 2 are called homozygous. Plant 3 has one copy of capital T on one of its members of homologous pair and one copy of small t on the other member of homologous pair. So I say plant 3 is heterozygous. So if I ask you the genotype, I want to know whether it is homozygous or heterozygous. This much is clear, okay? Where are the alleles located? Now coming back to the main concept. I had taken chromosome. I took a pair of chromosomes. What is this pair called? We will be repeating this many times so that the concept is clear to you. So this is called a homologous pair. Let me call it as a homologous pair. How many such pairs are there in the pea plant? In a pea plant, if you remember, in a pea plant diploid number is 14. So there are 7 pairs of such homologous chromosomes. In humans, how many such pairs are there? We have a diploid number of 46. So in humans, it is 23 pairs. But we are not bothered about humans ourselves here. Let us only focus on pea plant. Where are the alleles located? Say for example, I have shown a homologous pair. See, this is a pair from plant 1. Say one of the member has capital T. By now you know what is capital T. Tell me what is capital T. Capital T is a gene. To be very precise, it is an allele that codes for which character? So let me write it for you here. Capital T. Tell me now. Capital T is a allele, because you know that allele and gene are one and the same, because they control the same. Tell me now. It controls which character? It controls the character. It codes for the character of height. But let us be more precise. In height, which trait does it code for? It codes for tallness. So in terms of trait, it is tallness. It's coding for tallness. But if you were to look at it from a broader perspective, in terms of character, it controls height of a plant. So on one of the chromosome, capital T is located. On the other chromosome, small t is located. Now please look at this plant, look at this homologous pair and tell me, is this plant homozygous or heterozygous? By now you should be able to answer this question. On one of them it has capital T, which codes for tallness. On the other it has small t, which codes for dwarfness. Both are slightly different copies of the same gene because they code for the same character, which is height, but they code for contrasting pairs of traits. One of them codes for tallness, one of them codes for dwarfness. Yes, you are right. So this is heterozygous. This plant is a heterozygous plant. Now what is this point on the chromosome? Do you remember from the previous lecture 1? The point on the chromosome where an allele is located, we call it as locus. Very good. So now you know where chromosomes are located. In a pea plant, because pea plant is a diploid organism, we see pairs called homologous pair. In each homologous pair, I have taken one homologous pair. Please remember, I had told you in the last lecture, in a diploid organism, you can find for a character a maximum of 2 alleles. So you will see one copy of capital T and one copy of small t. And where are they located? Are they located on the same chromosome? No. Same pair? Yes. They are located on the same homologous pair, but in the corresponding members. Capital T is on one chromosome, small t is on the other chromosome. Can you see that the location is also the same? The location of capital T corresponds to the location of small t on the members of the homologous pair. Is that clear to all of you? So now you know where alleles are located in a diploid organism. Homologous pair, one of them will have capital T, one of them will have small t. Now just to extend the concept slightly, again I am going to take this homologous pair. Let me show capital T is on one member, small t is on another member. This together is a homologous pair. Now where did these 2 chromosomes come from? In a diploid organism, within a homologous pair, one of them has come from the egg. from the mother, and one of them has come from the sperm, that is from the father. So we call one of them as, say for example, maternal, and we call the other as paternal. So there are names given to the chromosomes in a pair. So let me call here also, let me label this as M for maternal and T for paternal. So maternal, in this example that I am giving you, it's not a rule, but in this example, capital T is located on the maternal chromosome and small t is located on the paternal chromosome. So each homologous pair in a diploid organism consists of two members. The name given to the members are maternal chromosome and paternal chromosome. Maternal chromosome came from the egg contributed by the mother, and paternal chromosome came from the sperm contributed by the father. Okay, so now you know where alleles are located. This is just a recap before I start with the actual Mendel's monohybrid cross. Another very important thing which I have to discuss before I just jump off to Mendel's monohybrid cross is something which you should know, diploid versus haploid cell. Now let me take a diploid cell in a pea plant. You know that 2n is equal to 14, and how many pairs of homologous chromosomes I have been telling you from lecture 1? 7 pairs. In that, let me take one pair. The same pair I am going to take. What do you call this pair now? A homologous pair. So you know that there are 7 pairs of such chromosomes. I have taken only one pair, so I am going to call it as a homologous pair. On one of them, I am going to stick to the same example. On one of them there is capital T, on the other there is small t. So this is in a diploid cell. So let me write it here in big, diploid cell. Suppose a diploid cell becomes haploid. Can you think and tell me what process should happen if this diploid cell must become a haploid cell? So usually what happens is, you all know that there is a cell division which has to take place. What is that cell division? Yes, you are right. Meiosis has to take place. Meiosis is also called reductional division. For a diploid cell to become a haploid cell, meiosis has to take place. Now in meiosis, you will get haploid cells. Now see what will happen in these cells. So this is in a diploid cell. Let me put a boundary. Don't think there's only one pair. How many pairs are there? 7 pairs. But I've shown only one pair. I want to show you the fate of this pair. What will happen to this homologous pair in a haploid cell? After meiosis, in a haploid cell, see what has happened. One of the cell will have, and the other cell will have. So let me put a circle, a rough circle around it. See? What has happened now? Can you think and tell me what has happened? In a diploid cell, capital T and small t were together. They were a pair. But now, unfortunately, capital T is alone. It has passed on alone to a single cell, and small t is alone here. So here, if I want to represent the alleles in a diploid cell, I will say capital T, small t, because they are together in the pair. But now see, the paired chromosomes have become single. So I should simply say capital T here, and I should say small t here. And it is always good to circle it. A circle represents a haploid cell. So a haploid cell has only one allele each. One of the haploid cells has capital T, the other haploid cell has small t. Why did they get separated from each other? Because the cell underwent meiosis. Did you all understand? In a diploid cell, the capital T and small t are, when I say together, don't think it is the same chromosome. Together means as a pair, homologous pair. But unfortunately, during meiosis, the homologous pairs get separated and each haploid cell will receive only one copy of the allele. There will not be two copies, like how in a diploid cell we wrote two copies, but in a haploid cell it is either capital T or it is small t. So paired chromosomes became single. See here, this was maternal paired with paternal. Now sadly maternal is sitting alone in one cell and paternal is sitting alone in the other cell. So what happened to them, maternal and paternal? They were together, they were very happy together, but now they got separated. And this separation happens during meiosis. Separation of, let me write here for you. So during meiosis, what happens is, during meiosis, separation of homologous pairs. There is a word which we use for this. It is called segregation. This separation of homologous pairs is called segregation. Did you understand what happened? So in a diploid cell, they were together as a homologous pair, but in a haploid cell, the pairs get separated. One haploid cell will receive the maternal member, the other haploid cell will receive the paternal member. So if I represent capital T and small t together, it is understood I am talking about a diploid cell, and that I am talking about a homologous pair. If I represent capital T in a circle or small t in a circle, it is understood that I am talking about haploid cells. And see, they have only one copy of allele. Here there are, in a diploid cell, there are two alleles present together, but in a haploid cell, they either have the capital T allele or they have the small t allele. So what got separated? The pairs got separated. And how did this happen? This happened because a very important cell division took place. That cell division is called meiosis. And what do we call haploid cells in plants? Which is the haploid cell in animals? Egg and the sperm. The same way in plants also there are gametes, isn't it? So in the plants also, for sexual reproduction, they need to produce haploid cells. So these haploid cells, say for example, it may either be a pollen grain or it may be an egg. Always remember, meiosis is mostly seen in those cells which are involved in formation of sex cells or gametes. Always put a circle. When you put a circle, it means it is haploid. When you don't put a circle, it means it is diploid cell. They are paired. Here the alleles have become single. Isn't it? One copy of allele means single allele. So small t is single. Capital T is single here. Until a little while before, capital T and small t were a pair. But now capital T is alone in one cell. Small t is alone in the other cell. And because the cell has now become haploid. By which division? By meiosis. Mostly the haploid cells are the sex cells or the gametes, because meiosis takes place during the formation of sex cells or gametes within the flowers of the plants. The male gamete is produced in the pollen grain and the female gamete is produced in the pistil, in the ovule. You all have learnt embryo, sac, egg. So when you put a circle, I'm repeating this again, if you don't put a circle and represent it, it is a diploid cell because you are showing two alleles. See? But if you are showing a single allele with a circle, it represents a haploid cell. It is a byproduct of, what is it a byproduct of? Meiosis. Meiosis is called reductional division. Homologous pairs get separated and each cell, a haploid cell, receives only one member of the pair, not both members of the pair. Okay? Like I showed here in the diploid cell, both maternal and paternal are there, but in a haploid cell, maternal is alone, and in one of the other haploid cells, paternal is alone. the homologous pairs have now become single. So alleles also become single. Here the allele is paired with capital T and small t over here, but here it's either capital T or it is small t. Okay. Now moving on to inheritance of one gene. Why is it called inheritance of one gene? Because in this experiment that was performed by Mendel, he is concerned only about one character. Which is that one character that he experimented with? That is height. So the character that he was concerned with is the height, and that's why we know that a gene controls a character. So one gene represents one character. By now you all know the height or the character is controlled by how many alleles? Capital T, small t. Capital T is responsible for tallness. Small t is responsible for, is coding for, let us use the word coding for. Capital T is an allele coding for tallness and small t is an allele coding for dwarfness. So one gene in how many allelic forms? In two allelic forms. What are the two allelic forms? One is small t and one is capital T. So when we say one gene, the first thing that should come to your mind is, okay, one character, which is the character height. Mendel experimented on pea plants with respect to height. Height is consisting of how many traits? Tall and dwarf. So which are the genes which control tall and dwarf? Capital T is the gene which controls tall and small t is the gene which controls dwarf. What do we call such slightly different copies of the gene which control contrasting traits such as tall and dwarf? We call them as alleles. The alleles control same character but different traits. So that's why this experiment or this concept is called inheritance of one gene. We are going to study the inheritance of one gene in the sense our focus is going to be only on one character, that is height. And our focus is going to be on two slightly different copies of the gene controlling height, that is capital T, which is a gene that controls or codes for tallness, and small t that codes for dwarfness. What do we call such slightly different copies of gene? We call them as alleles. So let us see what Mendel did in a monohybrid cross. First of all of you tell me why it is called monohybrid cross. It is called monohybrid cross because it is a cross between two parents that differ in. So remember here, parents involved in the cross differ in a single character or one pair of traits. So he crossed a plant, a male plant with a female plant. Of course in pea plants he had to pollinate it himself because generally in pea plants the flowers are bisexual. So he had to pick up the pollen from the male parent and dust it onto the stigma of the female parent. So what character were they differing in? He chose a tall plant and crossed it with a dwarf plant. Tall and dwarf are what? One pair of traits. Which character? Single character, height. Since it is a cross between two pure breeding parents differing in only one pair of traits or one character, it is called a monohybrid cross. So let us write the schematic representation. As I am writing the schematic representation, I am going to explain what Mendel did in his monohybrid cross. First he selected parents. Parent plants he selected. So I'll call it as parental generation or P1. Simply I can call it as parents. So what he took was, he took a pure breeding or a pure bred tall pea plant. Pure bred means, by now you know, homozygous or heterozygous? Homozygous. He took a pure bred tall pea plant and crossed it with a pure bred dwarf pea plant. Okay, now next let us write the genotype. I told you, if I'm asking you the genotype, I'm asking you whether it is homozygous or heterozygous. Pure breeding means homozygous. So if it is a homozygous tall pea plant, by now you know it is capital T is the genotype. For this it is small t, small t. Is that clear? So is it a diploid cell I'm representing or a haploid cell? Diploid, because capital T are present in a homologous pair. Here small t and small t are present in a homologous pair. Now when you want to cross a plant with another, obviously gametes have to be formed. So let us imagine he considered this plant as the male plant and he considered this plant as the female plant. Now, if this is the male plant, it has to produce male gametes, which is the division that takes place in this cell when it has to undergo, when it has to produce. I told you in the previous slide, when a diploid cell has to become haploid cell, what division should happen? Meiosis should happen. So this plant, through meiosis, it will produce pollen grain, which have male gamete. Now, why am I putting a circle to the male gamete? Because it's haploid. And did you notice I'm showing only one allele inside? Why only one allele? I told you in the previous slide. In a haploid cell, the homologous pairs get separated. So there will be only one member of the homologous pair, or only one allele will be there. No two alleles. When you write two alleles, it is diploid. So this plant produced, let me label this as pollen. It's a gamete. Now this is a female plant, so it undergoes meiosis. Now when it undergoes meiosis, it is going to produce all gametes which have small t alone in them. So I'm putting a circle. Circle means it's haploid, and in this case it's a gamete. So what should I call the female gamete? Egg, sitting inside the ovule and the embryo sac. So here I will write gametes, and above the gametes I will write, where I am showing meiosis, I am going to write gametogenesis. The process of formation of gametes is called gametogenesis. So the male plant that he chose, the purebred or homozygous tall plant, has produced pollen with one copy of capital T. The female plant that he chose, the purebred dwarf pea plant, has produced egg with one copy of small t. Now what should happen? Pollination and fertilization. So this male gamete in the pollen will fuse with the egg, because this is sexual reproduction. Gamete fusion is required to form a diploid zygote. See what the zygote has. One of them has contributed, the male has contributed capital T, the female has contributed small t. Now see, I have written capital T, small t. I have not put a circle around it because it is a diploid cell. So what can I call this capital T, small t? I can call this, actually this is a zygote which becomes the seed. And what is this now? Is the seed the same generation or the new generation? It's the next generation. So I'm going to label this plant, which is capital T, small t, as filial 1 generation. I can write it as filial 1, or I can call it as F1 generation. In Latin, filia means daughter, filius means son. So the offspring, the first generation, is named as filial 1 generation or F1 generation. Actually, these are seeds, isn't it? Because when a pollen and egg, when the male gamete and the egg fuse with each other, we get a diploid zygote, and the zygote develops in the seed. So what Mendel did was, he took these seeds and he sowed them, and he saw all these seeds grew to become tall plants. All were tall. Did you understand? So I'm not getting into the details right now. I'll come to that later. Why all were tall, we'll come to that later. But let me in short tell you, Mendel took these seeds of which generation? Of F1 generation, and he sowed them in the soil. And he let them grow, and he saw all of them grew to become tall plants. Then he was wondering, he had taken a tall plant and a dwarf plant, why only tall is expressing in the F1 generation? So he thought maybe the trait of tall is dominant over the trait of dwarf. So he said one of the traits that expresses itself among the parental traits, see, one of the parent is tall, the other parent, the female parent in this case, is dwarf. But the F1 generation, the offspring or the F1 generation is expressing what? Is it becoming is it expressing a character which is in between tall and dwarf? No. It is either of the traits of the parents. In this case, which is the trait it is expressing? Tallness. Which is the trait which is getting suppressed? Dwarfness. So what did Mendel obviously conclude? Maybe tall is dominant over dwarf. So he called the tall as the dominant trait. This is not the end of Mendel's cross. Okay, there's more to it. So, and he called the dwarf as the recessive trait. Okay, so whichever expressed itself in the F1 generation among the parental traits. Which are the parental traits? Tall and dwarf. He chose a tall male plant and crossed it with a dwarf female plant. While he crossed, what did he do? He took the pollen of the male parent and dusted it onto the stigma of the female parent. The male parent here, in my scheme, I am assuming that the tall plant is male. It produced a pollen with one capital T allele. The female produced egg with one small t allele. When the sperm and the egg, the pollen and the egg came together, the resulting zygote had capital T small t, which became a seed. He collected the seeds of F1 generation, sowed them. All of them were tall. So he was wondering, I took a tall and a dwarf plant. How come their offsprings are all tall? That means tallness is dominant over dwarfness. I will get into the details later, but now we have stopped in this slide at F1 generation. So what is F1 generation? Capital T, small t. All of you think and tell me, since I have written here in the Mendel scheme, you know that capital T is a gene or an allele that codes for tallness, and small t is an allele that codes for dwarfness according to the Mendel scheme that we are writing here. Can you tell me this F1 hybrid, is it homozygous or heterozygous? It is heterozygous because it has two unlike alleles, capital T on one member of the homologous pair, small t on the other member of homologous pair. So the F1 hybrid is heterozygous. All the F1 hybrids grew to become tall. Why? Because tall as a trait is dominant over dwarf. Are both the parental traits expressing? Are plants becoming, are 50% plants becoming tall and 50% plants becoming dwarf? No. Are the plants becoming, developing a height which is in between tall and dwarf? No. They are either tall or dwarf. In this case, they are tall. They cannot be both at the same time, or they cannot have an intermediate height, an in-between height. Isn't it? So this is what told him that something is being passed on from the parent to the offspring in an unchanged form. See, Mendel did not know anything about gene and allele. So Mendel used a word called factor. So I'm putting it in big letters here. He used the word factors for the genes. He didn't know anything about genes. He said there is some unit called factor which is being passed on from one generation to the other, and which is what is making sure, which is unchanged. The factor is not changing. That's why all the plants are tall. If factors were if factors were changing or they were interacting with each other in some way, then probably we would have got a plant which was in between in height. The fact that in spite of capital T and small t occurring together in the F1 hybrid, see, capital T and small t occur together in the F1 hybrid, but which is expressing, capital T is expressing. So he said that these are being passed on from the parent to the offspring in unchanged forms. He did not use the word allele and gene. That is all something which we have devised now for our convenience of study. But he didn't use the word gene or allele. He just said factors are passed on from parents to the offsprings. And this gave the basis for his first law, that is called the law of dominance. Okay, so parents were purebred tall pea plant, homozygous tall, dwarf. One of the parent was dwarf. But offsprings all are tall because tall is dominant over dwarf. Okay. Now let us continue. He self-pollinated. The scheme is continued here. Self-pollinated F1 plants. Anyway, these plants undergo self-pollination on their own. He didn't have to do anything. So if a plant is undergoing self-pollination, the pollen is produced from the same plant and it deposits onto the stigma of the same plant. So the same plant becomes both the male parent and the female parent. So what is the genotype of the F1 plant? Capital T, small t. It's as if you are crossing this plant with itself. That's what is called self-crossing or self-pollination. That means pollen from the same plant is falling onto the stigma of the same plant. So the same plant becomes both the male parent as well as the female parent. So this is the genotype. So you are allowing it to undergo self-pollination. So I have written the same genotype on both sides because it is one plant. The pollen is also coming from the same plant. So the plant behaves as both male parent. The egg is also belonging to the same plant. So it behaves as a female parent. Now let us see, if the anther in this plant has to produce pollen grain, don't you think it is going to produce two different types of pollen? Because it is heterozygous. See, capital T with small t. So what division takes place during pollen formation? Meiosis takes place. I already told you, during meiosis the pairs get separated. See, this cell has only capital T, this has only small t. Why? Because the parent plant was heterozygous, capital T, small t. So aren't we getting two types of gametes here? Isn't it? So we get two types of pollen. Because the plant is heterozygous. The same way here also. If this plant is to undergo meiosis, why should it undergo meiosis? Because it has to produce egg in the gynoecium, isn't it? Gynoecium means the same flower acts as, and the same plant acts as a female. When I say female, we have to take gynoecium into account. When I say male, we have to take androecium, anther into account. So what type of eggs is this plant producing? If half of the eggs will have capital T in them, half of the eggs will have small t in them. So let me put a brackets and write two types of eggs. So two types of pollen and two types of eggs. Pollen means, please remember, pollen gives rise to the sperm, the male gamete. Why we got two types of gametes here? Because the parent plant here, the F1 generation plant, is not homozygous because it is heterozygous. I had showed this in the beginning itself. When a heterozygous cell undergoes meiosis, one cell will get capital T, the other cell will get small t, because the pairs are getting separated. Okay, is this clear to all of you? So what should I write here? I should write gametogenesis on the left side. You have to follow the same pattern always, and here I have to write gametes. Now what is the next generation plants that we get? The next generation is called F2 generation. The first generation after parents were called F1, filial 1 generation. Now you have self-pollinated the F1 plants. Mendel self-pollinated it. He got the next generation. What do we call the next generation? We call them as F2 generation. Now what we do for F2 generation usually is, we have totally how many gametes? 2 gametes from this parent and 2 gametes from this parent. Usually we represent the gametes in the form of a graphical representation. I will tell you what it is called, but now let us quickly finish drawing this. So let me take a box like structure, or let me draw one column, a left column and a topmost row. And let me divide this corner into 2 halves, and on one side I am going to write the symbol of male, and on the other side I am going to write the symbol of female. Now what I am going to do here is, these 2 pollen grains I am going to write it in the topmost row, capital T, small t. So that is, the male represents, these are pollen grains, isn't it? Now what am I going to do? I am left with eggs. So where do I put the eggs? I will put them in the first column on the left side, capital T and small t. So I have written the eggs on the column and the male gametes or the pollen in the row. Now I have to make boxes. So how many boxes do I get? 4 boxes I get. What is the use of this? It's very easy. See, if this pollen grain, let me put ticks for you to understand. If this pollen grain fuses with this egg, the resulting zygote will be capital T, capital T. If this pollen grain carrying small t fuses with the egg carrying capital T, then the resulting zygote will be capital T, small t. Similarly, if the first pollen grain fuses with the egg with small t, the resulting zygote will be, zygote means seed, capital T, small t. Then again, if the second pollen grain carrying small t fuses with the second egg carrying small t, we get a zygote with small t, small t. So what do the boxes represent? The boxes represent zygotes, offspring. Which generation? F2 generation. The boxes represent the the genotype of the offspring, isn't it? Now tell me, this plant will be tall. Homozygous or heterozygous tall? Homozygous tall. This plant also will be tall because you know dominance. Capital T is dominant over small t, like how we saw in F1 generation. So this also will be tall. Now what about this? Tall. And what about this? Dwarf. Now calculate the ratio. Let us write 2 ratios here. First one is called phenotypic ratio. In phenotypic ratio, it is very simple. You don't have to break your head about homozygous or heterozygous. You just have to write how many plants are tall and how many plants are dwarf. So 3:1. In which generation? F2 generation, the second generation. Okay. Now we should write the genotypic ratio. In the genotypic ratio, what do we need to take into account? One of them is homozygous tall. Then here 2 of them are heterozygous tall and one of them is homozygous dwarf. See, if it's a genotypic ratio, you need to take into account which is homozygous, which is heterozygous. If it is phenotypic, you don't have to bother about heterozygous and homozygous. You just need to bother about which is tall, which is dwarf. Did you understand? So surprisingly, did you notice something here? In F1 generation, I had told you all plants were tall, but surprisingly in the F2 generation, he got both tall and suddenly he got dwarf plants. Even though the dwarf plant ratio is very less, only 1 out of 4. Ratio is 3:1. Surprisingly, the dwarf character has reappeared. In F1 generation, I told you all the plants obtained were tall. There was not a single plant having dwarf in it. So he said tallness is dominant over dwarfness. But now he was very, very surprised, because in the F2 generation, what happened in the F2 generation? Suddenly the dwarfness has reappeared. Some of the offsprings have become dwarf, 3:1 ratio. Why did this happen is the question. He was wondering why this happened. We will answer that question later. I think we have already answered that question in the past few slides, but we will come to that later. Is it clear, the Mendel scheme? So let me go back to the previous slide. See from the beginning, parent, what did Mendel cross? Mendel crossed a pure breeding tall pea plant with a pure breeding dwarf pea plant. Genotype, pure breeding means homozygous, capital T, capital T. Then pure breeding dwarf will be small t, small t. For a cell to undergo breeding, for a plant to undergo breeding, it has to produce gametes. How do they produce gametes? Gametes are produced by meiosis, by a process called gametogenesis. If you assume this to be the male parent, the tall plant to be the male parent, and the dwarf plant to be the female parent, the male parent produces all pollen with only one copy of capital T in them. The female parent produces all eggs with only one copy of small t in them. Why only one copy of allele? Because the gametes are haploid. I told you in diploid only you find two alleles. In haploid, because the chromosomes get separated, you see only one allele. Then when they combine during fertilization, so here you can write fusion, gamete fusion you have to write. When capital T, a pollen carrying capital T, combines with an egg carrying small t, you get a seed, a zygote, which is capital T, small t. He took this seed and sowed it in the ground. He obtained all of them were tall. What is this generation of plant called? F1 or first filial generation. Why was he surprised? He said, while crossing I took a tall and a dwarf plant, but in the offspring all of them are tall. So he said tall is dominant over dwarf. And he said that none of the plants were intermediate in height. They were not in between in height. That means something unchanged is being passed on. And what did he call that unchanged unit that was passed on? He called it as factor. F1 hybrids are heterozygous. Why they're heterozygous? Because they have one allele capital T and one allele small t. Are they alike or unlike? They are unlike alleles. That's why they're heterozygous. Is this the end? No. He took that F1 hybrid, he allowed it to undergo self-pollination. In self-pollination, the same plant gives pollen and the same plant gives egg. That's why I've written the same genotype twice. I have written one representing the anther and one representing the ovule. So the anther produces two types of pollen, 50% of the pollen with capital T, 50% with small t. This female part represents the ovule. It produces two types of eggs. What are those two types of eggs produced in the ovule of this plant? Some of the ovules will have eggs with capital T, some of them will have small t. Why are they producing two different types of eggs over here and two different types of pollen? Because the plant is heterozygous, capital T, small t. This is not cross pollination, it is self pollination. And how did we represent the F2 generation? By drawing columns and rows and boxes. The column represents the female gametes, the row represents the male gametes, the boxes represent the next generation. What is the next generation called? F2 generation. In F2 generation, if you see the phenotypic ratio, it is 3:1. 3 of them are tall and 3 of them are dwarf. And the genotypic ratio means you have to consider homozygous and heterozygous. It is homozygous tall is to heterozygous tall is to homozygous dwarf. That is 1:2:1. Why was Mendel surprised in this case? Mendel was surprised because some of the plants were dwarf. In the F1 generation, he did not get dwarf plants. All of them were tall. But in the F2 generation, Mendel was surprised because some of them had become dwarf. The dwarfness had reappeared in what ratio? 3:1, 3 tall and 1 dwarf. What is this ratio called? Why is it called phenotypic ratio? Because it is something which you can observe. You can tell which plant is tall and which plant is dwarf. So 3:1 is the phenotypic ratio, 1:2:1 is the genotypic ratio. Did you understand? Okay. Now that graph that I drew, I told you. Now let me just continue the this is we are done with the Mendel scheme, but just to explain it to you, if you remember, we did self-pollination of what? F1. In that I took the same genotype twice, because the same plant is behaving both as male and female. That means you are collecting pollen from the same flower. You are not collecting, it's happening naturally. The pollen from the same flower is falling onto the stigma of the same flower. So pollen and eggs come from the same flower, same plant. Okay, so what are the pollen grains that are produced? Capital T, half of them with capital T alone, half of them with small t alone. What are the eggs that are produced by the gynoecium? Half of them are capital T, half of them are small t. So let me call these as the pollen or the male gamete. The pollen contains the male gamete, and let me call them as eggs. And how did I represent F2 generation? To find out the F2 generation, the seeds that were obtained in the F2 generation, I took the pollen in a horizontal, the first row, capital T, small t. I took it in the row. And then what did I do to the eggs? I took the eggs in the column, capital T, small t. And then we put boxes. What do the boxes represent? The seeds. So eggs are taken in the column here, and the pollen are taken in the row. So because the row is the pollen, let me write male over here, and here let me write female, and the boxes are the zygote. When this pollen fertilizes this egg, we get capital T, capital T. When this pollen fertilizes this egg, we get small capital T, small t. When this pollen again fertilizes this egg, we get small t, when this pollen fertilizes this egg, we get capital T, small t, and when this pollen fertilizes this egg, we get small t, small t. So I hope it is clear now. This kind of representation, this table or diagram or graphical representation which is shown over here is called a Punnet's square board. This was first devised by a British geneticist called Reginald C. Punnett, and this kind of a representation where you put rows and columns, the rows and columns represent gametes, and the boxes, what do the boxes represent? The boxes represent seeds of the next generation. After fertilization, you get seed. So this representation is called a Punnett square board. So let us write what exactly a Punnett square board means. So Punnett's square board, it is a diagram that we can use to calculate the probabilities of possible genotypes of offspring in a cross. Okay, so a diagram that we can use to calculate the probability of possible genotypes. So if you put this box, you know that the possible genotypes are homozygous tall, heterozygous tall, heterozygous tall, homozygous dwarf. So to find this probability, you are going to use this diagram or this graphical representation that is referred to as the Punnet's square board. It is used to calculate the probabilities of all possible genotypes of offsprings in a cross. By now you should know what a genotype is. A genotype is homozygous. By putting this table, by putting this diagram or graphical representation, you can easily tell that the phenotypic ratio is 3:1 and the genotypic ratio is 1:2:1. What is this generation? Please remember, this is the second generation. So it is called filial 2 generation. How did we obtain second generation? The second generation was obtained by self-pollination between the F1 generation. F1 into F1 means the pollen of the flower is picked up by the stigma of the same flower. The same plant behaves as male and the same plant behaves as female. Okay? Now coming to Mendel's first law. Now this is called the law of dominance. What did Mendel observe when he crossed a tall and a dwarf plant in the F1 generation? Did he get 50% tall and 50% dwarf in the F1 generation? No. Did he get plants which were in between in height? No. He got only tall plants. So what did he conclude? Tallness was dominant over dwarfness. And he said there were some factors which were being transmitted, passed on in an unchanged form from the parent to the offspring, because they were not in between tall and dwarf. They were either tall, or in this case they were tall. They were not a mixture of tall and dwarf. So he gave this first law, which is called the law of dominance. There are 3 postulates to this law. The first postulate says every character is controlled by, in a living organism, every character is controlled by a discrete unit which we today know as gene, but he did not know gene. So what did he call? A discrete unit called factor. Then he also said factors occur in pairs. For your knowledge, which is the pair of factors we had considered? The pair of alleles, capital T, small t. He said factors occur in pairs. This is the second postulate. Then he said in a dissimilar pair of factors, unlike or dissimilar pair of factors. So what is he talking about? Homozygous or heterozygous? Capital T, small t, heterozygous. In a dissimilar pair of factors, one of the factors dominate. So we should call this factor as dominant the other factor. Which is the other factor? The other factor is called recessive. The factor which is not allowed to dominate is called recessive. So what happened in the F1 hybrid? Let us understand this with respect to the F1 hybrid. In the F1 plant, the seed was capital T, small t. That means on one chromosome there was capital T, on the other chromosome in the corresponding position there was small t. But what did the plant grow to become? The plant grew to become tall. That means the gene or the allele controlling tallness, coding for tallness, is not allowing the gene or allele that is coding for dwarfness to express itself. So we call this tall gene as what? As dominant. And we call the dwarf gene, the gene which codes for dwarfness, we call it as what? Recessive, because sadly it is being suppressed. That's why all plants became tall, because who is suppressing whom? Capital T is suppressing small t. And when does this suppression happen? In heterozygous condition. That's why he has mentioned dissimilar pair of factors. Dissimilar pair of factors means, please remember, heterozygous, capital T small t. The members of the allelic pair are unlike or dissimilar. So when these dissimilar factors or alleles come together, one of them will dominate the other, will not allow the other to express. So the allele that expresses, the gene that codes or expresses itself is called dominant. The gene which does not express itself in the F1 generation is called recessive. Which character, which trait did not express in the F1 hybrid? Dwarfness. So dwarf allele or the dwarf gene is recessive. It got suppressed. Which trait got expressed here? Tallness. So tall allele or tall gene is dominant. Okay, so remember the three major postulates here. Every character is controlled by a discrete unit called factor. For every character there is a gene. Usually there is occurrence of factors in pairs. Like we saw, the genes controlling height exist in two alleles, capital T and small t. Capital T and small t are alleles of each other. They are alleles of the same gene. They are slightly different copies of the same gene because they express or because they code for a contrasting pair of traits. But what is same? How are they related? I have been telling you from the beginning. Capital T and small t are related because they code for the same character. How are they different? Because they code for different contrasting traits. Third postulate, in a dissimilar pair of factors, one of them dominate the other factor. The one that dominates, which is tall in this case, is called dominant, and the other one is recessive. Dominate means they express in the offspring. F1 hybrid is an offspring. When you take this seed which has capital T and small t in it, and when you sow it in the soil, the resulting plant will be tall. That means the tall gene is suppressing the effect of the dwarf gene. The tall gene is expressing itself. So tall allele or tall gene is dominant. The dwarf allele or dwarf gene is recessive. Okay? So that was Mendel's first law. Now moving on to the Mendel's second law. It is called the law of segregation. Law of segregation is nothing but what we had learned about diploid and haploid. I had told you already. See, let me take F1 hybrid in Mendel's cross. What is the genotype of the F1 hybrid? Is it homozygous or heterozygous? Heterozygous, capital T, small t. Now, when you crossed it, when you self-pollinate it, what should this plant produce? This plant should produce either pollen or egg, depending on whether it is anther or stigma. So during its gamete formation, it should undergo what? It should undergo meiosis, I had told you. And during meiosis, I had told you that capital T and small t get separated from each other such that a gamete will either receive capital T or it will receive small t. Do we see any gamete receiving both like this? Put a circle means it's a gamete or a haploid cell. Wrong way of representing. Do we see that capital T and small t, say when capital T and small t were present together, did they mix with each other? Did they blend? Did they mix with each other? No, they did not. They were sitting on either chromosomes. Remember, capital T is sitting on one member of homologous pair, small t is sitting on the other member of homologous pair. They are not mixing with each other. There is no blending. When do they decide to say goodbye to each other? During meiosis. During meiosis, they faithfully move away such that a gamete receives either capital T or small t. There cannot be a gamete which has received both. There cannot be a gamete, say, which receives a mixed product of both. No, mixture or blending is not happening. Both are not moving on. It's not possible for both to move because I had told you in meiosis, the homologous pairs get separated. So what do we call such gametes that are produced by meiosis? Remember, if I put a circle, it's a haploid cell, and all haploid cells are gametes. It may either be pollen or it may be egg. Here, supposing I have taken anther. This is a cell in the anther, so this should be pollen. What do we call such pollen? We call such gametes or pollen as pure gametes. Why pure gametes? Because this gamete is faithful to capital T. It doesn't have a mixed product, it doesn't have a blended product, or it doesn't have both capital T and small t in it. It has only capital T, so we say this gamete is pure for tall. This gamete is pure for dwarf because it only has dwarf allele. It doesn't have a mixture of both. This is called law of segregation, and I told you the process in meiosis where the homologous pairs get separated, we use the word already, it is called segregation. Segregation refers to the separation of homologous pairs that happens during meiosis. See how these pairs get segregated, and one of the gametes, I am repeating it here again, will receive one member which has capital T on it alone, and the other member goes to the other gamete which has small t on it alone. Never both, or never a blended product. There is no, see here, capital T and small t. Let me show you again in the next page. Capital T and small t are present together. What do you mean by present together? Are they on the same chromosome? No, when I say together, they are on the same pair. When are they present together? In the F1 plant, in the F1 hybrid. Even though they are present together, it's not like they mix with each other, so they do not blend. They stay together as in as a pair, but they never mix together. They never blend with each other. They do not blend. And when do they say goodbye? They say goodbye to each other during gamete formation, during meiosis, such that a gamete will receive either capital T or it will receive small t. What do you call such gametes which have only one allele, either dominant or recessive? We call them pure gametes. Why did they receive only one? Because during meiosis, a process called segregation happened. During segregation, capital T and small t goes in one direction, capital T goes in one direction. They are no longer a pair. See, they became single. Did you understand? So this is the Mendel's second law, that even though capital T or small t remain together. So let me write the statement of Mendel's second law here. The allelic pairs of dominant, that is capital T, don't put a circle, so let me rewrite it for you here again. According to the Mendel's second law, the allelic pairs of dominant capital T and recessive small t nature, though remain together. Where do they remain together? In which plant is capital T and small t together? In F1 hybrid. Though remain together in F1 hybrid, do not blend or contaminate. But when do they go away from each other? But faithfully. They say goodbye. Faithfully. Use the word segregate. During meiosis. Meiosis happens during gametogenesis. During gametogenesis. Such that what are the what are the gametes receiving? Either capital T or small t, not both. Such that the gametes receive a single allele. In brackets you write capital T or small t. That is either dominant or a single allele of either dominant or recessive nature. Such gametes are considered, what do we call such gametes? Pure. That's why sometimes Mendel's second law is also called, see it is called, I'm writing it here in the previous page slide I wrote, law of segregation, or it is also called law of purity of gametes, because the gamete will have only one allele, either capital T or small t. It will not be a mixed product. See, the allelic pairs, read the sentence, it's very important for 2-mark question. The allelic pairs of dominant and recessive nature, though remain together in the F1 hybrid, do not blend or contaminate, but faithfully segregate during the time of gametogenesis, such that the gametes receive a single allele of either dominant or recessive nature, and such gametes are considered pure. So you will never get a gamete which has both capital T and small t, because during meiosis the alleles undergo faithful segregation. You will only get a gamete, and what do you call such gametes which are pure to their trait? They are called pure gametes, because this gamete is true to tallness, this gamete is true to dwarfness. It doesn't have a mixed product. And where are they present together for a very long time? In the F1 hybrid. See, in the F1 hybrid, capital T and small t remain together, but they don't disturb each other, they don't blend with each other, and they say goodbye to each other during the time of meiosis. Isn't this the reason why we got dwarf plant in the F2 generation? This is the reason why Mendel suddenly saw that in the F2 generation dwarf plants had reappeared. Imagine if this gamete was not there. If this gamete having small t was not there, then it would not be possible for us to get a plant with small t in the F2 generation. The fact that we have a gamete with small t, that is because of segregation that happened in the F1 hybrid during the time of gametogenesis. We have a plant which is small t. That's the reason why even in the F1 hybrid, all of you please remember, in the F1 generation Mendel saw all the plants were tall, but suddenly in the F2 generation the dwarfness reappeared. Now you know the reason why the dwarfness reappeared. That is because the F1 hybrid is producing gametes of two types, that is with either the dominant T or the recessive T. And how did it produce gametes with two types of alleles? That is because of segregation. That is because during meiosis the alleles separate from each other, they don't mix or contaminate or blend with each other. So if you have a gamete with small t, only then you can have a plant which is small t, which is dwarf. That's why you have a dwarf plant in the ratio of tall and dwarf in the ratio of 3:1. Okay. So what did we learn today? So we learnt about inheritance of one gene, we learnt the detailed schematic representation of Mendel's monohybrid cross, and we learnt the first law of dominance and the three postulates, and then we moved on to the second law of Mendel, which was called the law of segregation. Since the gametes receive only one copy of the allele of either capital T or small t, we call such gametes as pure. So I told you that law of segregation is also called the law of purity of gametes. Okay. So homework is, you need to write what is a Punnett square board. I forgot to mention the scores here. So Punnett square board you will write for 1 mark. Define a monohybrid cross for 1 mark. Why were all plants obtained in F1 generation tall for 1 mark. Give the schematic representation for 5 mark. You need to write the scheme P1, F1, F2. You need to write the Punnett square board. State Mendel's second law of inheritance is for 2 marks, and state the postulates. There are 3 postulates, so it is for 3 marks. So this completes the second lecture of the chapter Principles of Inheritance and Variation. Thank you.